The year was 2157, and humanity had spread beyond Earth to establish colonies across the solar system. People lived on Mars, the Moon, and several space stations orbiting Jupiter and Saturn. The United Earth Coalition, or UEC for short, managed a growing fleet of ships designed for both exploration and defense. Despite sending countless messages into deep space for decades, humans had not yet made contact with alien life. Jack Carter stood on the observation deck of the UEC vessel Horizon, watching as the ship approached a moon orbiting Tau Ceti, a star not too far from Earth. At 45 years old, Jack had spent half his life as a diplomat, helping settle disputes between Earth's colonies. He had gray streaks in his dark hair and wrinkles around his eyes that deepened when he smiled. This mission was different from his previous assignments. The Horizon was carrying equipment and personnel to build humanity's first outpost beyond the solar system. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. Jack turned to see Olivia Martinez, the ship's communications specialist. She was in her early 30s, with shoulder-length brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "It is," Jack agreed, looking back at the moon's surface. Hard to believe we're the first humans to see this up close. Olivia stood beside him at the window. "The survey team says it has everything we need. Water ice beneath the surface, useful minerals, and no dangerous radiation." Jack nodded. "If this works, it opens the door for more outposts, maybe actual colonies someday." Captain Frank Boyd's voice came over the ship's speakers. "All senior. Staff to the bridge immediately." Jack and Olivia exchanged worried glances before rushing to the bridge. When they arrived, the captain was standing stiffly, staring at the main view screen. "3 unknown vessels just entered the system, Captain," Boyd said without turning. "They're big, much bigger than the Horizon." Jack moved closer to see the screen. 3 massive ships shaped like arrowheads were moving toward them. Each one was at least 5 times the size of the Horizon. Their dark metal surfaces reflected no light, making them look like holes cut into space itself. "They're broadcasting some kind of signal," Olivia said, sitting at her station. She pressed buttons quickly, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It doesn't match any human communication pattern. I think it's not from Earth." The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. First contact. After so many years of searching and waiting, humanity had finally found proof. They weren't alone in the universe. "Can you respond?" Jack asked, moving to stand behind Olivia's chair. "I'm trying different frequencies," she said. "Wait, they're sending something new. It seems to be adjusting to match our communication systems." The main screen flickered, and an image appeared. Jack gasped involuntarily. The being on screen had gray-blue skin stretched over a face with no nose, just breathing slits. Its eyes were large and completely black, with no visible pupils. When it spoke, its mouth barely moved, but they could hear the words translated into English. "This is Supreme Enforcer Xylax of the Vesperi Dominion. You are trespassing in Vesperi territory. Identify yourselves immediately." Captain Boyd straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "I am Captain Frank Boyd of the United Earth Coalition vessel Horizon. We are on a peaceful mission to establish an outpost. We did not know this system was claimed by anyone. We come in friendship." The alien's expression didn't change. "The Tau Ceti system has been Vesperi territory for 300 years. Your ignorance does not excuse your trespass." Jack whispered to the captain, "Let me try, sir." Boyd nodded, and Jack stepped into view of the communication system. "Supreme Enforcer Xylax, I am Jack Carter, diplomatic representative of Earth. We sincerely apologize for our mistake. We have been attempting to contact other intelligent species for many years without success. We are eager to establish peaceful relations with the Vesperi Dominion." Xylax was silent for a moment. "The Galactic Council has discussed your species. We have observed your development from afar. The Council has determined that humans are too volatile and unpredictable to join interstellar society." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "You've been watching us? For how long?" "Long enough to see your wars, your environmental destruction, your division. The Vesperi Dominion enforces the Council's decisions. You will abandon this outpost and return to your home system. You will remain there until the Council determines you are ready for contact. This may take centuries." Captain Boyd stepped forward again. "We've already begun construction. We have people on the surface. We can't just leave. Your construction is illegal. Your presence is unauthorized. You have 6 Earth hours to remove all personnel and equipment from the moon's surface. After that time, we will remove them for you." The screen went dark. The bridge erupted in concerned voices until Captain Boyd raised his hand for silence. "Mr. Carter, options?" the captain asked. Jack ran a hand through his hair. "We need to buy time. Get our people off the surface, certainly, but we can't just give up this outpost. It's too important for Earth's future. Maybe if we could speak to other members of this Galactic Council." "Sir," Olivia interrupted, "they're scanning us. Our computers, our databases, everything." Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge. "They're firing on us," the weapons officer shouted. "Shields failing." "Get our people off the surface now," Captain Boyd ordered. "Prepare to return fire." Jack grabbed Olivia's arm. "No. If we fire on them, we prove everything they just said about us. Try hailing them again. We need to explain." Another blast hit the ship, throwing Jack to the floor. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Engine core damaged," reported the engineering officer. "We're losing power." Captain Boyd helped Jack to his feet. "Get to the escape pods. I'm ordering general evacuation." "What about our people on the surface?" Jack asked. "The shuttle was already on its way back when they fired," the captain said. "They should make it to the rendezvous point. Now go." Jack and Olivia ran through corridors filled with smoke and fleeing crew members. They reached an escape pod as another blast rocked the ship. "We can't leave yet," Olivia said, hesitating at the pod entrance. "I need to send a message to Earth. They need to know what happened here." Jack wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. They rushed to a nearby communication station. Olivia worked quickly, recording everything that had happened and sending it along with all the data they had on the Vesperi ships. "Message away," she said as the lights flickered around them. "Let's go." They strapped themselves into the escape pod just as a final explosion tore through the ship. Their pod ejected automatically, tumbling away from the dying horizon. Through the small window, they watched in horror as the Vesperi ships fired on the outpost, reducing it to rubble in seconds. The shuttle carrying the surface team tried to flee, but a single shot from the largest Vesperi vessel turned it into an expanding cloud of debris. "No," Jack whispered, pressing his hand against the cold glass. They surrendered. They were leaving. Olivia sat rigid in her seat, tears streaming down her face. They didn't care. They never intended to let anyone leave. As their pod drifted away, using its minimal cloaking technology to avoid detection, Jack made a silent promise to the people they had just lost. Somehow, he would make sure Earth knew the truth. The Vesperi thought humans were too unpredictable to join their Galactic Council. Perhaps they were right to be afraid, but for all the wrong reasons. "They'll regret this," Olivia said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "They pushed us too far." Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on the Vesperi ships. "And every species will remember what happens next." 6 months had passed since the Tau City massacre. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The streets of major cities were filled with recruitment posters. Factories that once made everyday goods now produced ship parts and weapons. Children played games of humans versus aliens instead of cops and robbers. A message from the Vesperi had been received, but the response was not what they expected. Jack Carter stood at the window of his apartment in Washington, D.C., watching military vehicles pass on the street below. The nightmares still came every night. He would see the horizon exploding, the shuttle being destroyed. All those lives ended in an instant. His therapist said the dreams might never stop completely. Jack had accepted that as part of his new reality. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. Olivia Martinez entered without waiting for a response, carrying a tablet and wearing the new dark blue uniform of the United Earth Coalition Defense Force. "You look terrible," she said, placing the tablet on his desk. Since their return to Earth in the escape pod, Olivia had become his chief of staff, helping him navigate the political aftermath of the attack. "Good morning to you too," Jack replied. With a small smile, he gestured at the uniform. "That's new." Olivia straightened her collar. "Admiral Wright wants all senior staff in uniform from now on. Even civilian advisors like me. She says it presents a united front." Jack nodded. Susan Wright had been a moderate voice in the UEC military before Tau Ceti. Now, as the newly appointed head of the Defense Initiative, she was leading Earth's preparation for what many believed was an inevitable war. "The Admiral is waiting for us," Olivia continued. "Dr. Reeves says he has a breakthrough." Alan Reeves was a physicist who had been working with fragments of Vesperi technology recovered from debris that had clung to their escape pod. His team had been working non-stop to understand how the aliens' weapons and shields functioned. "I'll get my coat," Jack said, taking one last look at the city outside. Everything seemed so normal from a distance. People going about their lives, not fully grasping how close humanity might be to extinction. The Defense Initiative headquarters was underground, beneath what used to be a public park. Jack and Olivia passed through multiple security checkpoints before reaching the main conference room. Admiral Wright was already there, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her uniform immaculate. Next to her stood Dr. Reeves, a thin man, with perpetually rumpled clothes and wild hair that seemed to defy gravity. "Carter," Admiral Wright said with a nod. "Glad you could join us. Dr. Reeves has something to show us." Dr. Reeves moved to a display screen on the wall. "We've finally figured out how the Vesperi shields work," he said, pulling up diagrams and equations. "They use a form of energy absorption and redirection that's far more efficient than anything we've developed. But here's the interesting part." He pointed to a section of the display. "Their design has flaws, weaknesses we can exploit." "Can we replicate it?" Admiral Wright asked. Dr. Reeves smiled. "Better, we can improve it. I've combined their approach with some theoretical work my team was doing before the attack. We believe we can create shields that will not only withstand Vesperi weapons, but potentially absorb and redirect their energy." For the first time in months, Jack felt a spark of hope. "How soon?" "We're building a prototype now," Dr. Reeves said. "If it works, we can begin retrofitting our defense fleet within weeks." Admiral Wright nodded approvingly. "This is good work, Doctor. But we need more than just defensive capabilities." "One step at a time, Admiral," Jack cautioned. "If we can protect ourselves, we buy time to find a diplomatic solution." The Admiral's expression hardened. "They murdered our people without provocation, Carter. They've made it clear they don't recognize our right to exist beyond our own solar system. What kind of diplomatic solution do you envision?" Before Jack could respond, an aide rushed into the room. "Admiral, we've detected an unknown ship approaching the solar system. It's using some kind of stealth technology, but our new sensors picked it up near Neptune's orbit. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. The Vesperi had returned. "Battle stations," Admiral Wright said, her voice calm but firm. "Alert the fleet." "Wait," the aide said, looking at his tablet. "We're receiving a transmission. It's not Vesperi. The ship is identifying itself as Novali." Dr. Reeves looked up sharply. "Novali?" The Vesperi mentioned a galactic council. This could be another member species. "Put it through," Admiral Wright ordered. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. The being that appeared was nothing like the Vesperi. Where they had been hard angles and gray-blue skin, this creature was soft curves and golden. Scales. Its eyes were wide and expressive, with vertical pupils like a cat's. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said, its voice melodic and soothing. "I am Ambassador Aliran of the Novali Collective. I come in peace and secrecy." Jack stepped forward. "I am Jack Carter, diplomatic representative of Earth. Why have you come to our system, Ambassador?" "To warn you," Aliran said, its expression somber. "The Vesperi have not been truthful with you. They do not speak for the entire Galactic Council in their actions against your species." Admiral Wright moved to stand beside Jack. "Are you saying the attack at Tau Ceti was unauthorized?" "Not exactly," Aliran replied. "The Council did vote to restrict human expansion beyond your home system, but there was disagreement about the approach. The Vesperi took it upon themselves to enforce the decision in their typical ... severe manner." "Why are you telling us this?" Jack asked. Aliran's image flickered slightly. "Because the Vesperi have done this before. Many times. They find promising young species and eliminate them before they can become potential rivals. They manipulate the Council, using fear of competition or cultural contamination to justify their actions. My people have only recently begun to see the pattern." Dr. Reeves joined them at the hologram. "Are you saying we're not the first?" "Far from it," Aliran said sadly. "In the last 1,000 years alone, the Vesperi have been responsible for the extinction or containment of 14 spacefaring civilizations. But you humans have progressed faster than most. You may be the first with a real chance to resist. We're not interested in fighting a war against multiple advanced species," Jack said carefully. "You misunderstand," Aliran replied. "I am here to offer an alliance. The Novali and several other Council species have grown concerned with Vesperi dominance. We cannot act openly yet, but we can provide information. Technology. The Vesperi are planning to return to your system with a larger fleet. They intend to demand your complete disarmament and oversight of all your technology development." Admiral Wright's face darkened. "And if we refuse?" "They will not ask twice," Aliran said quietly. "You have 30 Earth days before they arrive." The hologram flickered again, more severely this time. "I cannot maintain this communication much longer without risking detection. I will leave a data package with coordinates for a secure meeting point outside your system. If you wish to discuss terms of alliance, meet me there in 15 days." The hologram disappeared. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Admiral Wright broke the silence. "It seems, Mr. Carter, that your diplomatic skills may be needed after all. But we will continue our military preparations at full speed." Jack nodded slowly. "For once, we agree completely, Admiral." That night, as he looked out at the stars from his apartment window, Jack thought about what Aliran had said. Humanity wasn't the first species the Vesperi had tried to eliminate. But perhaps they could be the last. The Vesperi had pushed humanity into a corner, expecting submission or extinction. Instead, they would find resistance unlike anything they had encountered before. Humanity had 30 days to prepare for the fight of its life. Jack Carter intended to make every one of them count. The UEC ship Defiance moved silently through space, approaching the coordinates Ambassador Illyrin had provided. The ship was Earth's newest and most advanced vessel, built using the knowledge gained from studying Vesperi technology. Its hull was dark gray with minimal lighting, designed to be difficult to detect. Inside, Jack Carter stood on the bridge beside Admiral Susan Wright, watching the stars through the main viewport. "No sign of the Novali ship yet," reported the sensor officer. "But we're picking up unusual energy readings ahead." Jack checked his watch. They had arrived exactly on time, 15 days after Illyrin's message. The fate of Earth might depend on what happened in the next few hours. "There," Admiral Wright said, pointing to a shimmer in space ahead of them. A ship was appearing, seeming to emerge from nowhere as its cloaking device deactivated. It was smaller than they expected, with a smooth, curved design that reminded Jack of a teardrop. "We're being hailed," Olivia said from her communication station. "On screen," ordered Admiral Wright. Ambassador Illyrin's golden-scaled face appeared. "Greetings, humans. I am pleased you decided to come. Please dock with my vessel, using the magnetic coupling extending from our lower hull. We have much to discuss and not much time." The Admiral looked at Jack. "Your show now, diplomat." Jack nodded. "Bring us alongside, Captain," he said to the Defiance's commander. 20 minutes later, Jack, Admiral Wright, Dr. Reeves, and Olivia stepped through the airlock onto the Novali ship. The interior was warm and humid, with soft amber lighting that pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Ambassador Illyrin greeted them personally, bowing slightly. "Welcome aboard the Whispered Truth," the ambassador said. "This vessel is designed for covert meetings. The Vesperi cannot detect us here. You're taking a great risk to help us." Jack said, "Why?" Illyrin led them to a circular room with a large table in the center. The surface of the table glowed with star maps and data displays. "The Novali are scholars and historians," Illyrin explained. "For centuries, we accepted the Vesperi's explanations when species disappeared or were quarantined. We believe their claims that these races were dangerous or unready for interstellar society. But my research team discovered patterns that could not be ignored. The Vesperi have been eliminating potential rivals before they can develop interstellar capabilities. They keep the Council divided and dependent on their military strength." "How many Council species are there?" asked Admiral Wright. 7 major species," Illyrin replied. "The Vesperi are the most powerful militarily. The Novali are known for science and record-keeping. The others have various specialties. 3 of them now secretly share our concerns about Vesperi dominance." Dr. Reeves stepped forward. "We've been adapting Vesperi technology, but we're still behind. Any technical assistance you can provide would be invaluable." Illyrin touched the table, and new displays appeared. "We've brought technical specifications for our shielding systems, which are different from Vesperi designs. Also, star maps showing Vesperi patrol routes and fleet distributions. But most importantly, we've brought this." A new image appeared on the table. It showed a device shaped like a cylinder with complex internal components. "This is a prototype energy modulator," Illyrin explained. "It can absorb energy from Vesperi weapons and potentially redirect it. We've been developing it in secret, but our progress has been slow. Perhaps your scientists can find new applications." Dr. Reeves leaned closer to the display, his eyes wide with excitement. "This is similar to concepts we've been working on. With this as a starting point, we could make major breakthroughs." While Dr. Reeves examined the technical data, Jack moved closer to Illyrin. "What happens when the Vesperi arrive at Earth? Will they come alone, or will other Council ships accompany?" "Them? They will come alone," Illyrin said. "The Council voted to quarantine Earth, not to destroy it. The Vesperi are exceeding their authority, but they will make it appear legitimate. They always do. How much time do we have? Asked Olivia. 15. More days, Illyrin replied. A Vesperi fleet of 7 large warships is already on its way to your system. They will demand your surrender and permanent oversight of your species. Admiral Wright's expression remained neutral, but her voice was hard. We won't surrender. Not after what they did at Tau Ceti. Then you must be prepared for extreme measures, Illyrin warned. The Vesperi will target civilian populations to force compliance. They have done this before. As they continued their discussions, downloading data and making plans, an alarm suddenly blared through the Novali ship. Illyrin's scales changed color, shifting from gold to a pale yellow. We've been discovered, the ambassador said, rushing to a control panel. A Vesperi scout ship is approaching. You must return to your vessel immediately. They hurried back. To the airlock, Dr. Reeves clutching a data device containing everything the Novali had shared. As they reached the connection between the ships, Illyrin stopped them. There is one more thing you should know, the ambassador said urgently. The Vesperi fear humanity for a reason. Your adaptability, your creativity, these are rare traits in the galaxy. Most species develop along predictable lines. Humans are different. The Vesperi fear what you might become. Thank you for your help, Jack said, extending his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Illyrin touched Jack's hand with a scaled finger. Fight well, humans. The galaxy is watching. They barely made it back to the Defiance before the ships separated. As they pulled away, they saw a large Vesperi vessel appear, firing on the much smaller Novali ship. The Defiance's captain was about to order them to help when the Novali ship vanished, activating its advanced cloaking technology. Set course. For Earth, maximum speed, Admiral Wright ordered. We have work to do. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Earth's defenses were strengthened. The fleet was retrofitted with new shield technology based on the combined knowledge from Vesperi, debris, and Novali designs. Dr. Reeves worked day and night on what he called the Prometheus Protocol, an adaptation of the energy modulator Illyrin had provided. Jack spent his time preparing diplomatic responses, though he held little hope that words would matter against the Vesperi. Still, he had to try. Perhaps some evidence of humanity's peaceful intentions might sway other council members, even if it did nothing to stop the Vesperi themselves. Then came the day they had been dreading. Earth's long-range sensors detected 7 massive ships entering the solar system. The Vesperi had arrived. Jack was in the UEC headquarters when the first message came through. Supreme Enforcer Xylex appeared on screens worldwide, his cold black eyes staring out at humanity. People of Earth, he said, his voice as emotionless as Jack remembered. The Galactic Council has determined that your species requires supervision. You will disarm all military vessels. You will accept Vesperi observers in all centers of government and technology. You will restrict your activities to your home planet and its moon. Compliance is mandatory. You have 6 hours to begin the disarmament process. Resistance will result in consequences. The message ended. In the silence that followed, Admiral Wright turned to the room full of military and civilian leaders. Operation Wildfire is now in effect, she said firmly. All fleet vessels move to defensive positions. Civilian evacuations to underground shelters begin immediately. Dr. Reeves, status of the Prometheus Protocol? Ready for deployment, Dr. Reeves reported. The system is installed on the Defiance and 5 other ships. If it works as we hope, it could change everything. President Lara Garcia, who had been listening quietly, stood up. Send our response to the Vesperi. Tell them Earth rejects their terms. We will defend ourselves. As the others filed out to their battle stations, Jack felt a moment of doubt. Were they making the right choice? Could humanity really stand against such advanced enemies? Olivia appeared at his side, now wearing a captain's uniform. She had been given command of a small, fast vessel in the defense fleet. "This is it," she said quietly. "Everything we've been preparing for." Jack nodded. "Be careful out there." She gave him a tight smile. "You too. See you on the other side." As Olivia left, Jack watched the screens showing the approaching Vesperi fleet. They had pushed humanity into this corner, expecting submission. Instead, they would find a species that refused to go quietly into extinction. Whatever happened next would change the galaxy forever. The 6 hours passed quickly. Earth's response to the Vesperi ultimatum was brief and clear. Humanity would not surrender. As the deadline expired, the 7 massive Vesperi warships moved closer to Earth. They positioned themselves in a formation that would allow them to target major cities around the planet. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance, which hovered in orbit with 50 other human vessels spread out in a defensive screen. The ships were a mix of military vessels and converted civilian craft, all retrofitted with the new shield technology. It was not much compared to the enormous Vesperi fleet, but it was all humanity had. "They're charging weapons," reported the sensor officer. "Energy readings are off the charts." "All ships, activate Prometheus Protocol," Admiral Wright ordered. "Remember your training. Let them fire first." On the main view screen, they watched as the lead Vesperi ship launched a bright beam of energy toward Earth. It was aimed at the lunar colonies, where over 10,000 people lived and worked. "Interceptors, move now," shouted Admiral Wright. 3 small, fast ships moved into the path of the beam. Their shields glowed bright blue as they absorbed the energy of the Vesperi weapon. For a moment, it seemed to work. Then one of the ships exploded in a flash of light. The other 2 followed seconds later. "The protocol failed," Dr. Reeves said, his face pale with shock. "The energy was too much." Before anyone could respond, the Vesperi beam continued on its path and struck the lunar surface. The explosion was visible, even from Earth orbit. The colony, with all its inhabitants, was gone in an instant. "Those monsters," Admiral Wright whispered. "They surrendered. They were evacuating." Jack Carter watched from the UEC headquarters on Earth, his hands clenched into fists. The lunar colony had sent a surrender message the moment the Vesperi ultimatum was received. They had been in the process of shutting down operations when the attack came. It was Tau Ceti all over again. The Vesperi had no interest in surrender or negotiation. They wanted only to demonstrate their power. "Sir," said a communications officer, "we're receiving transmissions from the Vesperi." Supreme Enforcer Xylax appeared on screen. "This is your only warning. Begin disarmament immediately, or your major population centers will be next." Jack turned to President Garcia, who sat with their Security Council around a large table. "Madam, President, this isn't a negotiation. They're going to attack regardless of what we do." The President nodded grimly. "All defense forces engage the enemy. Dr. Reeves, is there any hope for the Prometheus Protocol?" Dr. Reeves, who was linked in from the Defiance, looked up from his console. The interceptors were too small. Their systems couldn't handle the energy load. But the Defiance has a much larger version of the system. If we can get close enough to one of their ships... "Do it," ordered the President. "Admiral Wright, you have full authority to engage." In space, the battle began in earnest. Earth's fleet moved to intercept the Vesperi warships. The human vessels were smaller and more maneuverable, but the Vesperi had far superior firepower. One by one, human ships exploded as they were hit by the powerful alien weapons. On the Defiance, Admiral Wright watched the battle unfold with a stone face. "Helm, take us directly toward the lead Vesperi ship. All power to forward shields." "That's suicide," the captain protested. "That's an order," the Admiral replied firmly. Dr. Reeves, prepare the Prometheus protocol. We'll only get one shot at this. The Defiance surged forward, taking fire from multiple Vesperi vessels. Its shields glowed brightly, but held as the ship closed the distance to the Vesperi flagship. Prometheus protocol at full power, Dr. Reeves reported, absorbing and storing energy from their attacks. The Defiance shuddered as it took hit after hit. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Shields at 40%, called out. N. Officer, 35-30. Almost there, Admiral Wright said calmly. Almost there. Meanwhile, Olivia Martinez commanded her small vessel, the Swift, on the far side of the battle. She had been given a special mission by Admiral Wright before the fight began. While the main fleet engaged the Vesperi, Olivia and a small team would attempt to slip past the battle and make contact with the Novali or any other sympathetic council species. Cloaking system active, reported her second-in-command. We're invisible to their sensors for now, but it won't last long at this power output. Olivia nodded, watching as the Defiance took the brunt of the Vesperi attack. Stay on course. We need to clear the solar system before they detect us. Back on the Defiance, they had reached firing range of the Vesperi flagship. The enormous alien vessel loomed in their view screen, dark and menacing. Prometheus protocol at maximum capacity. Dr. Reeves announced. Any more energy and the system will overload. Target their command center, ordered Admiral Wright. Fire. A beam of brilliant blue-white energy shot from the Defiance, striking the Vesperi flagship dead center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a web of energy began to spread across the alien ship's hull. The web grew brighter and more extensive until suddenly, the Vesperi vessel erupted in a massive explosion that engulfed two nearby Vesperi ships. It worked. Dr. Reeves shouted, forgetting military protocol in his excitement. A protocol worked. We redirected their own energy back at them, but amplified and focused. A cheer went up across the bridge. Admiral Wright allowed herself a small smile before returning to her command face. Target the next vessel. Same procedure. On Earth, Jack watched in amazement as the largest Vesperi ship disappeared in a ball of fire. Hope, which had seemed impossible just minutes before, began to grow. When a second Vesperi vessel exploded, under the Defiance's attack, that hope turned to genuine belief that humanity might survive this day. But the Vesperi were not defeated yet. The remaining ships adjusted their tactics, spreading out to avoid being caught in another chain reaction. They concentrated their fire on the Defiance, knowing it posed the greatest threat. Shields failing, reported the Defiance's shield officer. Prometheus protocol offline. We've taken too much damage. Admiral Wright stood from her chair. All crew to escape pods. Initiate self-destruct sequence. Admiral? The captain questioned. Our core is destabilizing anyway, she explained. Better to choose when and where we go out. Set a collision course with that Vesperi vessel directly ahead. As the crew rushed to evacuate, Admiral Wright and Dr. Reeves remained on the bridge, guiding the damaged ship toward its final target. You should go, the Admiral said to Dr. Reeves. Your work isn't finished yet, the scientist shook his head. I need to maintain the core stability until the last moment. Otherwise, we'll explode too soon. In her ship, now beyond the edge of the solar system, Olivia received the emergency transmission from the Defiance. She watched on her sensors as the human flagship rammed into a Vesperi warship, the resulting explosion taking out both vessels in a blinding flash. Admiral Wright, she whispered, fighting back tears. Then, setting her jaw, she turned to her. Crew, set course for the Novali coordinates. We have a mission to complete. Back on Earth, Jack Carter watched the battle with a mixture of grief and pride. The human fleet was taking heavy losses, but they had destroyed 3 of the 7 Vesperi ships. It was far more than anyone had expected against such an advanced enemy. "Sir," said a communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission. It's not from the Vesperi." A new face appeared on the screen. It was neither human nor Vesperi, but a being with pale green skin and large oval eyes. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am Council Elder Krell of the Myth Collective. We have monitored this conflict and observed the Vesperi's actions. They have exceeded Council authority. A Council fleet is en route to your system to intervene. Hold out if you can. Help is coming." As the message ended, Jack turned to President Garcia. "We're not alone anymore." The president nodded. "Let's make sure there's something left to save when they arrive." 3 years had passed since the Battle of Earth. The planet still showed scars from the conflict, with impact craters visible from space where Vesperi weapons had struck. But there were signs of recovery, too. New cities had been built. The orbital defense network had been expanded and improved, and humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. Jack Carter stood on the observation deck of the HSA Redemption, the flagship of the Human Stellar Alliance fleet. At 50 years old, his hair was now more gray than black, and the lines around his eyes had deepened. As Director of Interspecies Relations, he had spent the last 3 years building alliances with other Council races. Today was the culmination of those efforts. "Nervous?" asked Olivia Martinez, joining him at the viewport. After her successful mission to contact Council allies during the battle, she had been promoted to captain and given command of her own ship, the HSA Swift. "A little," Jack admitted. "It's not every day you declare war on one of the most powerful species in the galaxy." They watched as ships from 5 different alien civilizations moved into formation alongside the human fleet. The curved vessels of the Novali, the crystalline structures of the Myth, the organic-looking ships of the Arathi, a species thought extinct but recently rediscovered, and 2 other Council races that had joined their coalition. Together, they formed the largest combined fleet ever assembled in recent galactic history. "Admiral Hansen is ready for you on the bridge," Olivia said. Hansen had taken over after Admiral Wright's sacrifice, continuing her work with the same determination. Jack nodded and followed Olivia through the corridors of the massive ship. Crew members nodded respectfully as they passed. Every person aboard knew what was at stake today. On the bridge, Admiral Hansen stood looking at a tactical display of Vesperi space. Next to him was Dr. Alan Reeves, who had survived the destruction of the Defiance in an escape pod. The scientist had continued his work, creating an even more powerful version of the Prometheus protocol that could disable Vesperi technology without destroying their ships. "Director Carter," Admiral Hansen greeted him. "The Council representatives are assembled in the conference room. They're waiting for your briefing." Jack took a deep breath. "Then let's not keep them waiting." The conference room was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Ambassador Illyrin of the Novali sat beside Council Elder Krell of the Myth. Representatives from 17 worlds that had suffered under Vesperi dominance were present, either in person or via holographic projection. "Thank you all for coming." Jack began. 3 years ago, the Vesperi tried to eliminate humanity because they feared what we might become. They didn't expect us to survive, and they certainly didn't expect us to fight back. But today isn't about revenge. It's about justice. He activated a display showing images collected from worlds under Vesperi control. Evidence of genocide, forced labor, and the systematic destruction of cultural heritage. For too long, the Vesperi have hidden their true actions from the Council. They've eliminated potential rivals and subjugated dozens of species. Today, we end their dominance. Ambassador Illyrin stood. The Novali support this action. Our historians have documented countless atrocities committed by the Vesperi Dominion. It is time for the truth to be known by all. One by one, the other. Representatives voiced their support. The coalition was united in purpose to break Vesperi power and free the subjugated worlds under their control. Dr. Reeves, Jack said, turning to the scientist. Please explain how we will disable the Vesperi fleet without causing unnecessary casualties. Dr. Reeves stepped forward eagerly. The Earthfall system is an advanced version of the Prometheus protocol we used during the Battle of Earth. Creates an energy field that disrupts Vesperi technology without harming organic life. Their ships will be disabled but intact. Their weapons will be useless. We can end their military dominance without destroying their civilization. The representatives nodded in approval. This was not to be a war of extermination, but of liberation. The operation begins in 6 hours, Admiral Hansen announced. All ships should be in position by then. As the meeting ended, Jack found himself standing alone with Illyrian. I'm curious, the Novali ambassador said. When we first met, you wanted a peaceful solution with the Vesperi. What changed? Jack thought about the question. I still believe in peace, but I've learned that true peace can't exist alongside oppression. Sometimes you have to fight for the peace that follows. The Novali nodded. A wise perspective. I think that's why the Vesperi feared humans so much. You learn and adapt faster than any species we've encountered. In just 3 years, you've gone from fighting for survival to leading a galactic coalition. We had help, Jack reminded him. Yes, Illyrian agreed, but it was humanity that united us. Remember that in the days ahead. 6 hours later, operation. Shattered chains began. The coalition fleet moved into Vesperi territory, liberating world after world. On each planet, they found evidence of the Vesperi's true nature. Species that had been enslaved for generations. Others that had been nearly wiped out, surviving only in small, hidden groups. Natural resources stripped away. Entire ecosystems destroyed. Olivia's ship, the Swift, was responsible for documenting everything they found. The galaxy needs to know what happened here, she said, as her team recorded the testimonies of survivors on a mining colony. This can never be allowed to happen. Again, the Vesperi fought back fiercely, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The Earthfall system proved even more effective than expected, rendering their fearsome weapons useless. Within weeks, the coalition had pushed deep into Vesperi, space, approaching their homeworld. It was then that they discovered the final horrible truth. The Vesperi leadership had been experimenting on their own people for centuries. Genetic modifications, cybernetic implants, mind control technology, all designed to create the perfect soldiers and workers. Most Vesperi civilians had no idea what their leaders had done in their name. They had been fed propaganda about maintaining galactic order and protecting civilization from dangerous species. When the coalition fleet reached the Vesperi homeworld, Supreme Enforcer Zelax, the same commander who had ordered the attack on the horizon years ago, made one final, desperate move. From his command bunker deep beneath the surface, he activated a doomsday device designed to collapse the system's sun into a black hole. If we cannot rule the galaxy, then none shall have it, he declared in a broadcast to his people. The inferior species will perish with us. Jack and Dr. Reeves were on the Redemption when the warning came from their scientists. We have less than 30 minutes before the collapse begins, Dr. Reeves reported. After that, nothing can stop it. Can we evacuate the planet? Jack asked. There are billions of Vesperi civilians, Admiral Hansen said grimly. We'd save only a fraction. Olivia's voice came over the communication system. The Swift is the fastest ship in the fleet. We can reach the surface and locate the device. It's too dangerous, Jack protested. We don't have a choice, Olivia. replied firmly, "Send Dr. Reeves' assistant with us. He knows how the device might work." Before Jack could argue further, the Swift was already moving toward the planet's surface. They watched on the view screen as the small ship disappeared into the atmosphere. 28 minutes of agonizing waiting followed. The Coalition fleet began evacuating as many Vesperi civilians as possible, though they all knew it wouldn't be enough. Jack paced the bridge, checking the time every few seconds. With less than a minute remaining, a message came through from the Swift. "Device deactivated," Olivia reported, her voice weak. "Repeat, Doomsday device deactivated. Xylax is in custody." A cheer erupted across the bridge. Jack closed his eyes in relief, only opening them when Dr. Reeves touched his shoulder. "Olivia's been injured," the scientist said quietly, "but she'll survive. She's strong." In the days that followed, the true extent of the Vesperi leadership's crimes became clear to the galaxy. The Galactic Council was reformed, with all species given equal representation. The Vesperi would have to rebuild their society under supervision, learning to live alongside other species as equals rather than conquerors. 50 years later, Jack Carter, now an old man with white hair and a stooped back, attended a ceremony on a newly constructed space station at the border of what had once been Vesperi space. Representatives from 37 species gathered to dedicate a memorial to those who had died fighting Vesperi oppression. Olivia stood beside him, her once dark hair now white, her face lined with age, but her eyes still sharp and determined. They watched as children from across the galaxy, human, Novali, Myth, Arathi, and even young Vesperi, placed flowers at the base of the memorial. The inscription, written in the languages of all member species, had become a guiding principle. For the new galactic concordance, they pushed humanity too far, but our response was not merely vengeance. It was justice, liberation, and ultimately, peace. We remember the fallout not as the end of one era, but as the beginning of a better one. Jack looked out at the stars, thinking of all who had been lost along the way. Admiral Wright, the crew, of the Horizon, the lunar colonists, so many others. But their sacrifice had not been in vain.